Alright, so we have the Arrow slip-on exhaust for the Panigale V4. Before I unbox this, I do want to talk about some of the reasons as to why I chose the Arrow system compared to the other options that are on the market. Personally, for me, I do think the Arrow sounds the best based on the clips that I've heard online. I do know a lot of people like the Krapovic system or the SC project, and for me personally, I think I did want something that was a little bit more unique, but I do prefer having the tone that I want. And honestly, for the Arrow, I think it really is gonna sound exactly how I want this bike to sound, and I will sacrifice, a little bit of uniqueness for the right sound. I will say though, the other option that I was looking at was the Spark undertail exhaust, because I do like the look of the undertail systems on the Ducati, but honestly, for the price and there wasn't a lot of sound comparisons online, so I didn't really want to take the risk and get the Spark system, so I decided to, I don't want to say play it safe, but yeah, I played it safe and I got Arrow, but it's okay, because who knows, we can always change this exhaust in the future if we decide to switch things up to something a little bit different. So diving into the contents of the exhaust, as you guys can see, this box is pretty small. This is a slip-on. There aren't a lot of components included. We have the instructions and then the carbon heel plate. We'll open those in a second. One of the pipes. This is the titanium version, so it should have a nice coloring once this gets some heat in these pipes. But honestly, Arrow quality has always been pretty good. As you guys have seen in some of our previous bike videos, Kirk installed a full Arrow exhaust on his S1000RR, and that thing sounds honestly insane. I'm hoping this sounds pretty close to what that is, but we'll see once we get it installed on the bike. But this system is pretty simple. I do like the way Arrow has their welds. Everything is nice and smooth, as you guys can see. This honestly should give a really nice tone to this bike. But now right here, the important pieces. Let's see. Wow, look at this. So we have the Arrow full titanium line. I do like the fact that their logo is laser etched into the can. I hate when they do the sticker overlays, because honestly, that stuff looks not the best in my opinion. Not for road use, but we may use this on the streets. And then let's look at the next one. Nice. As you guys can see, similar construction. It does have the DB killers already installed. We will be taking those out because I do want it to have the maximum amount of volume when it comes to this exhaust. All right. Lastly, I do want to show you guys the part number for anyone that is interested in picking up this system. But now that you guys have seen the exhaust, now let's move on to the fun part. The first thing we're going to have to do is remove the lower fairings. That's just held in by the screws on the side, and then we'll be able to begin the process of removing the OEM exhaust. But first, let me actually give you guys a cold start just so you can hear what the stock exhaust sounds like. the springs and bolts now off, the next thing you're going to want to do is grab a rubber mallet and a wooden dowel or something very similar, and we're going to start to remove the exhaust. Now, it's best to start on the rear side first, and then once we get this section loose, then we're going to go to the other side and start from the front. As you guys can see, the gasket is already starting to show itself, so we know we're getting some movement in the exhaust. You want to free this part completely before moving on to the front. Finally have the stock exhaust off the bike, and man, I must say this thing was such a pain to remove. But I will say that I do recommend lubricating the connections with some WD-40. That definitely made it a whole lot easier when pulling this can off this bike. But man, look at this thing. This thing is an absolute tank. But now let's actually go ahead and weigh it so we can compare it to the new Arrow system. So first up, we're gonna weigh the OEM system. I added the exterior shields just to make sure this is the full complete weight, and it's coming in right at 17 pounds and 6 ounces. Now that is a substantial amount of weight, so let's see how this compares to the new exhaust. Now we have the Arrow system on the scale with the carbon heel guard and all the hardware as well. So let's see how much this weighs. 6 pounds, 9.6 ounces. So over 10 pounds saved when compared to the OEM exhaust. And man, that's huge. That's really good. And as I mentioned before, guys, this is a full titanium system, so we're gonna see big weight savings in that regard. So with the weight comparison now complete, let's go ahead and start the assembly of the exhaust. So to kick things off, I did go ahead and lay the entire kit out on the table just so you guys can see everything that is included with the Arrow system. But before I begin, I do want to mention that Arrow does provide some instructions with this exhaust, but I do fail to highlight some key things that I think is very important when it comes to assembling this system. So to begin, let's go over the hardware. So they do provide 2 springs. One is a longer one and the other is a shorter. Over here we have some metal lubricant. This will help in sliding the pipes into the mufflers a lot easier. Now over here we have the carbon fiber heel guard. Now this piece will attach right on this canister in this general location. This piece is actually really nice. It's real carbon fiber. It's actually a matte carbon as well. So I think this will go perfectly with the bike. Now over here they do provide an array of screws. Now they have 2 larger screws right here, and then they have 3 screws that are in 3 separate sizes. Now this will come in handy once we actually begin installing the exhaust on the bike. I will go over where these screws actually end up when installing the pipes. Then we have an array of washers, some metal securing clips, a rubber grommet, and then a exhaust bracket. So that's pretty much it when it comes to this entire kit. Now, before I go ahead and start installing it on the bike, I do want to actually remove the baffles that are inside each canister because I want this thing to be as loud as possible. So we're definitely going to want to have to remove these. Now that is actually pretty simple. They're just held in with these 3mm screws on both sides. So you need to undo this and then they come right out. And then we can actually put a few pieces on this kit. So we'll go ahead and install these 2 metal securing clips onto their respective areas on this portion of the pipe and then this portion of the shorter pipe. And then we'll be able to go over to the bike and start assembling this kit. And now let's hear what she sounds like. That's loud.